All right, so you've decided to take the plunge and learn how to weld. I'm gonna share with you the 3 must-have tools in order for you to start welding. So the first tool on that list is obviously a welder. But what kind of welder? What kind of welding method are you gonna use? You need to figure out what type of welding you want to do. There are several processes to choose from. You can choose from stick, to TIG, to MIG, and even within the MIG realm, you can choose gasless or flux core. For this video, and as a beginner welder, I am going to suggest going with the process called MIG. In my opinion, MIG welding is the easiest to start with. Now, MIG stands for metal inert gas, which is a subtype of GMHW, which is gas metal arc welding. Now, I'm not going to go into all the specifics because it will go on and on and on. As a beginner, you just want to get your hands on a gun that you can start welding and lay a bead. Now, you have 2 choices when you are going to go with a MIG. You can go with the gasless or you can go with a gas-based MIG. Now, with a gas-based MIG, you're going to have to buy a bottle that goes with that. So to keep costs down as a beginner, I suggest going with a flux core type wire so you don't need the gas. Now, there's a huge variety of MIG machines out there. You can go from super expensive to super dirt cheap based on your budget. As a beginner and as you're just starting, I would keep it simple. Go as cheap as you need to and stay within your budget. 25 years ago, I was given my first MIG machine, which was a flux core gasless welder, and I was able to create these wings from this little welder. My point is, you don't have to have an expensive machine to get started with welding or to create really cool stuff. Okay, so that's tool number 1, a gasless MIG machine. Now, as far as brands, there are plenty of videos out there that will help you decide what type of brand you go with. This particular brand, I've got another video that I'll link to up here if you want to watch that. But stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to show you some additional tools that you can add that will help you level up your learning experience as a new welder. Okay, tool number 2 in the beginner's toolbox is the angle grinder. Now, the angle grinder is a necessity in any welding shop. Now, here's why. When you bring steel into your shop, you need to cut it. In order to cut it, you can use an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. Simply put it on the angle grinder, mark your cuts, cut through the steel, and when you're done, you can take the cutoff wheel off, and you can now use a flap wheel. The flap wheel will help clean up those cuts, remove the burrs that were actually created during the cuts. Now, let's say, for example, you've welded your steel together, and you can now take off your flap wheel, and you can use a harder disc to actually clean up those welds. So you've got a lot of versatility with the angle grinder. You have to have at least 1 in your shop. I have at least 5 or 6. Each one set up with a different wheel, each one set up for a different type of metal, but as long as you have 1, you're on the road to success. Okay, tool number 3 to have in your beginner box is the clamp. Now, as you start to weld, you're going to realize that the welding on the steel creates a lot of heat. A lot of times with that heat, it tends to move the steel in different ways that you may not necessarily want. That's why it's important for you to clamp your work down to your work table. Now, there are a variety of clamps. It's important to have a variety. The bar clamp, you definitely want several of these. Depends on how big of a project you're working on, but this is regular gas pipe that you can actually take these fittings on and off. So if you have a piece that goes on a 4-foot section, you can use a 4-foot clamp, a 6-foot, a 6-foot clamp. So these are very helpful clamps in order to hold down your type of work. But let me show you a few more. These are also a very similar type of bar clamp. It's on a tension release so you can slide easily, which means that you can actually set up your work as quickly as possible. Have some of these clamps handy. Corner clamps. Now these are actually designed for wood, but I use them for metal. There are all types of corner clamps. These help you make the 90 degrees. So if you're making frames and you need to create a perfect 90, that's what these types of clamps are for. Another type of clamp is the vice grip type clamp. All right, these are super handy. Basically, it's a quick way of clamping a piece down to a table or to itself, or clamping two parts together. But clamping is super important in order to keep your piece from warping or twisting or changing shape after you've put it in place and before you weld. Keep in mind, everything that you weld is going to move if you don't clamp it. Clamp it, weld it, leave it, let it cool. Then you can remove the clamps, then you can move forward to the next part of the weld. As I said earlier in the video, I'm going to show you a couple of bonus tools that will help you level up your game as you're beginning how to learn. So in addition to having the cutoff wheel on an angle grinder, one of the tools that I use on a daily basis, and I will not go without, is actually a cold cut saw. Now this has a blade just like any other chop saw that you might have seen like in woodworking. But this blade is designed to cut metal. And so that makes it so much easier. Most people buy the cheaper versions of cut-off saws that are known for friction cutting. Now, you can buy a friction saw. It will definitely make things quicker than the angle grinder. But one of the things that I've noticed is after a good solid day of cutting with a friction saw, when you blow your nose, you know what you've cut. And I'll leave it at that. On the cold cut, you make a little bit of a mess, basically with all the little tiny pieces of metal, but they don't go in your nose. They basically go on the floor and you can sweep them up, and you can make cut after cut after cut, and you can pick up the material directly after that because it's not hot. Friction saws make the material hot because they use friction. So you can't pick up a piece after using a friction saw because it's too hot. Cold cut saw, you can definitely pick it up. Now, I use a particular brand. I'll put that link up here. You can definitely take a look at it. But I'm going to show you one more tool that will help you level up your beginner game. Another bonus tool that I would add to the beginner toolbox is the plasma cutter. Now this offers a lot of versatility to what you can do in your shop with regards to cutting more intricate patterns, more designs, and just to kind of speed up the process of cutting in general. So I'll leave a link to this particular type of plasma cutter right up here for you, but there are so many out there to choose from, it won't be hard to find one for around a couple $100. All right, that about wraps it up. The 3 top must-have tools in your welding toolbox is the MIG flux core welder, the clamps, and the angle grinder with the bonus cold cut chop saw and the plasma cutter. These are all tools that are going to help you along your journey as you learn more about welding. I hope you enjoy it. I do. And like I said, you don't have to spend a lot of money to make really cool things. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. It is greatly appreciated. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so now. It truly helps me build this channel. If you'd like to leave a comment, please leave that down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.